it till sound better this time. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Comedian Bible Study with Sean Grant, and I'm so I didn't time it right that time either, Channing.
Yeah,
I did not time it right that day.
One of these days.
One of these days, I'm gonna get this timing right. I just bought this copyright good song, so I had to figure out the timing of it. Thanks for coming back, guys. This is Comedian Bible Study with Sean Grant, and I am so excited to bring my next guest to the show today, man. This brother right here is a comedian and actor with over 400 million views on social media and nearly 1 million followers on TikTok alone. And for 13 years, he's hosted a religious debate podcast that's, in his words, not very funny at all. But thank you for being here, David C. Smalley.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course, brother.
This is where my two worlds meet.
Yeah.
I love this. It's always been funny because I've had this podcast for 13 years.
The Dogma Debate.
It was called Dogma Debate.
Yes.
And then I changed the name a couple times. I'm actually just about to go back to Dogma Debate as the name. So this is perfect timing. But I bring people on. We have these long, like really serious debates, always respectful and cordial, but about really serious stuff, whether it's abortion or faith or whatever.
Right.
And then people would they didn't even, a lot of my podcast fans didn't even know I was doing comedy.
Right.
And then I go do comedy and people would be like, oh, you're really funny. Can I check out your podcast?
Yeah.
I'm like, no.
Probably shouldn't.
You probably shouldn't, because you're going to listen and be like, this is a comedian?
Dude,
like, this guy sucks.
I'm not gonna lie, dude. Like, when I first made, before I even had a profile picture, David hit me up. Like, he saw Comedian Bible Study, like, oh, I'm about to whoop this dude's ass.
No, it's just so perfect because I keep.
But no, I love it, dude. No, because, and that's the thing is, as long as you're a comedian, and I just love the way comedians think, and I really am excited because I watch you online. I watch a lot of the stuff you put out, and I think it's important to see, like, just for people to get a vibe of you. You know what I mean? And it's one thing to know how you think, but as comedians, like, it's something else when you get to know the person. You know what I mean? And I appreciate you selecting the word for today. And Channing, of course, is always here with us. Shout out to Channing.
What's up, guys?
In the building. Yes, sir. So we're going to get into the word for today. And, it's Leviticus chapter 25, 44 through 46. And that's from the NIV, the New International Version, guys. And verse 44, your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you, and from them you may buy slaves. 45. You may also buy some of the temporary residents living among you and members of their clans born in your country, and they will become your property. 46. You can bequeath them to your children as inherited property and can make them slaves for life, but you must not rule over your fellow Israelites ruthlessly. A little background, guys. The book of Leviticus is part of the Torah, also called the 5 books of Moses: Genesis, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Leviticus, and Exodus. At this part of their travels, the Israelites are moving toward Canaan after 400 years of Egyptian slavery. They are still in the wilderness. Leviticus is a book that deals with the law. The Levites of the 12 tribes were priests and, in fact, never held their own land and territory, but served as priests throughout Israel and Judah. They had 613 Mosaic laws, not just 10 commandments. How this relates to Christianity: the Christian faith believes that Jesus came about 1,471 years after Moses' death to fulfill the 613 laws and stand as the eternal atonement between God and man. David, why this passage?
Man, because I was in the faith for the first probably 15 to 16 years of my life.
Yes.
I was in the music ministry. I was knocking on doors and soul winning. I was a drummer.
Yeah.
I was a drummer for multiple churches. It started at white churches. That was boring. Ended up moving into the black churches where
Were you in
it
the South?
got fun. Yeah. I grew up in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like Texas. A Texas black church is going to be like.
Shout out to Potter's house.
I played at Potter's house.
Yeah.
I got to play the drums at Potter's house. That whole with Kirk Franklin's entire crew.
Dang.
I was deep
Rockstar.
in it. Loved it, man.
Yeah.
And I was like the only white dude within miles of that, situation. And on top of that, I was keeping the beat. I was playing the Holy Ghost music. I was doing the funk and the blues and all of that.
Yes, sir.
And then the only disagreement I had with the pastor was when he tried to make me do a solo off a swing beat. I was like, that ain't my jam. And he's like, I said, we praise God with the drums. And I was like, and I didn't do it.
And then
he called me in the office later. I was like, man, put me on a 2/4 if you want a solid solo. He's like, what are you talking about, son? I'm like, don't make me solo off a swing beat. It's weird.
Was that TD? Actual TD Jakes?
No, I wasn't the drummer for Potter's House. I went there as a guest and got to play at Potter's House. But yeah, I played for 3 or 4 different churches back then. I'm actually on the cover of a religious album.
Wow.
It's Emmett Moffat and Triumph. I was a drummer for a gospel choir. So I don't know, man. I wrote a book about this and I published it in 2010. There's an audio book out in 2012. It's called Baptized Atheist. Basically what happened was I got baptized. I was forced to door knock and win souls.
Yes.
And I started to feel like what happened was I knock on a door. The lady, I lived in an all-black neighborhood.
Yeah.
Lady slams the door in my face and she said, honey, you need Jesus.
Wait, well, you were soul winning
for my church.
Okay.
And I said, I'd like to talk to you about our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. She slammed the door in my face and said, honey, you need Jesus.
Oh, my God.
And I stood there like, wait a minute. What if she has the right version of Jesus on the other side of that door? And all of these people do, and I'm out here messing people up. What if I'm doing a disservice? Yeah. I better go read this Bible and understand where I'm coming from. I did a 14-year deep dive study. I talked to theology professors. I went to college for psychology with a minor in world religions. Didn't finish, but did 5.5 years. I tried to go for a master's, complicated student loan situation.
Yeah.
Did 5.5 years of college, and then when I got done with all of that, I was like, I saw so many flaws and holes in how the Bible was put together, so many contradictions that I ended up not believing at all. So when I was a believer, this passage was one of the first ones that shook me to my core.
Right.
Like, why didn't God just make another commandment to say, thou shalt not own human beings? Like, why are all these regulations around owning people? You can beat your slave as long as they don't die within 2 days. You can sell a female slave and she doesn't get to go free after 7 years like the male slaves do. I mean, there's all these rules about it. Why not just say don't own human beings? To me, it was clear that this came from man. That's not a God, and I started finding holes, and that's why I pushed away and stopped believing.
Right, and I think a lot of so the Levites, they were a priestly tribe, and you see that it's like you may. I'm not sure if it's a part of the 613 Mosaic laws.
No, it's not a commandment to hold slaves,
right?
But they're like allowed to,
like people in culture. So I guess are you kind of comparing that version of slavery or that idea of slavery in that time to like American slavery, or is it more like? Would you compare it to the prison industrial system that we live in now? Or because I imagine people, when I looked up prisons back then, they were just holding places for either the sentence of death or the sentence of slavery. So I guess the idea if somebody hurt your daughter or did something, now he works for you, but in our time, they work for the government. They're state property.
Exactly.
And so the prison industrial system makes, $74 billion?
It's definitely a form of slavery.
Right.
And so the 13th Amendment allows for that.
Right.
The slavery is not abolished in this country. There's a caveat in the 13th Amendment that says unless you are convicted of a crime. So,
so is it something that we just, as we kind of have to walk around as a society? Because I guess even in the New Testament, there's ideas like Paul and Peter arguing about culture and trying to indoctrinate, like put religion, and we kind of mix our cultures with, obviously, it's almost unavoidable. We have language and things like that.
And there were fewer jobs back then. There were no unions, right? So there are moments in the Bible that are indentured servitude, where I need work. You feed me, you clothe me, you house me, and I work for you for 7 years. It's paying off a debt.
I guess that's what Joseph was. Well, he was working. He got imprisoned.
And then did the work.
Worked for the Egypt, and then for the dude's wife. Oh, God, I forgot the guy's name. But he worked in it, and then he got status in Egypt, and it was good until the new Pharaoh came and enslaved them. But at least they were able to keep their culture, I suppose, for the 400 years, and keep Passover and stuff like that. To your
question on the comparison to the American slavery, parts of it are, parts of it are not. There were definitely moments where it is pretty similar, and then there are times where you're just working off a debt. That's not what I'm talking about. And the reason I selected this specific verse is because so often when I have this conversation, the person who believes the Bible will say, or that believes that is from God, will say, it's just indentured servitude. They had to let go after 7 years, and that's very clear in that verse. They are your property, and you can pass them down to your children. So if you can pass them down to your children, That's property. That's money.
Right.
You owned that person.
Right.
Why didn't God do that? So for me, it was how can I continue worshiping a God that would condone or at least allow, not command, but allow something that we know is morally reprehensible today.
Continue. Yeah, I mean, even when you'd have been on Jesus' side when he came in quoting Isaiah, saying, I shall set the captives free. And he left out the part about vengeance and all that stuff.
Well, but Jesus said for slaves to obey your earthly masters, and then he even said specifically obey the Christian earthly masters. So Jesus didn't...
What was that where was that?
I don't remember. We could pull
Was
up
it
the
Paul
passage.
or I think it was, because it might have been Paul saying it to the Romans, but I don't remember Jesus. Well,
maybe Jesus, maybe I'd have to look
it
it
could
up.
have been Paul, yeah, or maybe in Revelation, because I know like he addressed certain
Can you fact check
churches.
me?
Yeah,
Cheney?
can you repeat it?
It's slaves obey your earthly masters.
Yeah.
I thought it was a quote from Jesus.
Right.
It's coming up. Ozzy Osborne.
That's
I'm kidding. Give me 1 sec.
Spot on. I get those guys mixed up all the time.
Yeah, Ozzy,
Jesus.
Ozzy,
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, I'll say similar things, man. Eating bats, who knows? But yeah, man, that's interesting. But let me ask you before, and while Shannon looks for that,
I got it.
oh, you got it.
Yeah,
who said
it's
that?
from Paul.
From Paul said that.
Yeah.
Is he quoting Jesus?
And to the Colossians, to the church,
Colossians.
Ephesians and Colossians, call on slaves to be able. Oh, so he was trying to stop the slave uprisings in those areas as he was trying to put churches in. Okay, yeah. So it's technically not out of the mouth of Jesus, but Paul, if anybody knows, he was a Christian-killing Pharisee, and here he's trying to build the church after his experience on the road to Damascus.
Ephesians 6:1.
Is that from Jesus?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, Ephesians 6:1. 6:1. Children, obey your parents in the Lord. Is that from? But even that is from. So when we're addressing churches in Ephesus and Colossians, and that's not the Gospels according to Mark, Luke, John, which would quote Jesus directly. The only place Jesus is quoted directly is in Revelations, but that's through John's vision, apocalyptic vision, right? Revelations,
Verse 5.
verse 5 in Ephesians.
6:1. Let's see, 6:1 through 5. So children obey your parents. So
But that's an
6:5.
epistle.
Sorry, Ephesians 6:5. Slaves obey your earthly masters with respect and fear, and with the sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ. Obey them not only to win their favor when their eye is with you, but like the slaves of
But
Christ.
that is from Paul, right? To the church at Ephesus. Ephesians is a letter to the church
It
at
is
Ephesus.
from Paul, yeah.
Right. So all the stuff, which it's his, and the same like Leviticus. It's these people, priests,
Okay.
pastors, trying to work around culture, right, and trying to without which I guess his strategy would be to not start slave rebellions.
I'm sorry. It's driving me crazy because I've said that for years. If I've been wrong, I got a lot of apologies.
That's all right. No, dude, that's what apologetics is all about.
No, but
And I wanted to ask you about that too before we
go ahead.
while you look that up. Like, so I saw you what made me kind of tremble. I saw you talking to Frank Turek. Turek, and honestly,
I've debated him twice now.
Debated him twice. So how'd you do? I only saw, I think, the first one. It was an English guy. Was it that one? The English guy was the moderator.
Yeah.
How do you think you did as a comic? We judge our
I think that was my
performances pretty
worst time ever, and I can tell you why. That was my worst debate performance. So of course you found that one, Sean.
Sorry.
I've had
I saw one where you beat a guy's ass, but go ahead.
I probably had 50 debates in 13 years, and that was the absolute worst.
Well, you knew
No, it was in the UK, so they had me up at like 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I'm a comic. I had a show the night before. I was
when you're about
to.
So you took that show knowing Frank Turek, the #1 apologetics.
So I had him on my show after that and did a much better job.
Nice.
But what happened was also the email that they sent, something happened to the email, and I only saw the first 2 sentences.
Oh.
And there was a huge space, so I thought that was it.
Yeah.
And then when they were like, no, we said we were going to talk about, they apparently listed 10 things we were going to talk about, and I only saw 2. So I didn't even see the other 8 things we were going to talk about. So it was like being blindsided the whole time. So
against like a heavyweight, like Mike Tyson, but you'd also have a bad corner.
Oh, come on, man. You're giving Frank too much credit, man.
Man, I don't know, man. Well, he's a big. I've never
had
met
him on my show after that, and it went much better.
Him?
Yeah,
you got him. How do you know when you're getting better at arguing?
When you stop arguing and start asking questions. People don't. E.M. Forrester said, how do I know what I think until I see what I say?
Oh, shit.
A lot of people never consider their opinions until they are forced to answer a question that makes them uncomfortable.
Right.
So I stopped talking at people and started asking questions, and I noticed as they were struggling to answer their own question, that's what I'm getting through to somebody.
Yeah, I've seen him kind of walk through that, like the whole apologet, like how to like make the other person talk a lot more, and that's kind of the nature of it.
Well, for me, it's not a manipulation; it's question and answer. Like your
heart is actually open when you're asking the question.
100%. And really, what I'm trying to do is reconciliation the entire time.
Yes.
Someone will say, on one hand, they'll be like, God watches over me, God keeps us safe. They'll quote Psalms 121:7. They're like, God is on my side, He watches over me, He's going to keep us safe from harm. And then on the other hand, they'll be like, oh, we have to volunteer at the children's hospital this week because we're going to the cancer ward.
Right.
And I'll go, have you ever said those two things at the same time?
Right.
God will watch over us and keep us safe, but there are children with cancer. How do you reconcile those two things? So I'll ask those questions because I genuinely want to know, because when I was a believer, I could not reconcile that. Yeah. And I would just make a note and I would move on. I would make a note and move on. And when the notes got so big, I published them in a book. Like, these are all the things I couldn't figure out as a believer, but they all make sense as a non-believer. So that's kind of how I ended up there. But we can get back on slavery. I know you wanted to stay on topic.
I'm good off slavery. You know, black people don't really talk about slavery that much.
So even if Jesus, let me just clarify. Even if,
I couldn't wait to talk about slavery. And I was like,
even if Jesus didn't say it, I thought he did. He may have referenced it somewhere else that I'm not aware of. I'm going to look it up when I leave here, and probably kick myself if I find it.
Yeah.
But the point is it's still the New Testament. It's still Paul is supposed to be a prophet of God. Paul told us a lot of stuff that we take, as gospel, really.
And I think him and Peter were disagreeing about circumcision because everybody was Jewish, and Peter said, well, they got to be circumcised like me. They had these arguments. I know there's different parts with women and whether they should preach or not. So
do we discount it because Paul said it? Do you say he says obey your earthly master, so we don't have to because it was Paul and not Jesus?
Well, yeah. Well, I think that Jesus. Well, it's just I just wanted the fact, like, make sure that, because I wasn't sure. Maybe
sure. I'm just curious. Let's just say I'm wrong about that, and it is Paul. The New Testament still says.
I think the way I reconcile, these are letters, right? That we've canonized, that people have canonized, like you said. So we have to realize where God's word might get like construed based on our perspective, like how we look at the sunset, and that from our perspective it says setting and this and that. But the Bible can be. I
don't know how we can misinterpret selling people and owning people.
Well, we do it now. So I'm saying, like, we're still American, and we have to reconcile that that we own the people in the prison, and here's the thing. I like that I don't have to put myself in position to judge that. I mean, I can be a believer. I just am faithful to God in that I don't have to make that judgment call whether I should kill a man. Now, some people could be called to that. I like being a comedian, and I'm not called to that. I'm a very simple man. But I like not going to prison, and I like not being told what to do.
Here's what I think it's easy to glaze over, though.
Yes.
It says in there, do all of this from the neighbors who live around you, but do not rule over your fellow Israelites ruthlessly.
But you can still rule over them a little bit.
Well, no, but he realizes that slavery is ruthless.
Right.
And says you can
he was
do
just in it. He was just in it.
And he says you can do it to these people, but don't do it to the Israelites because it's ruthless. Right. So he knows it's bad behavior to other human beings.
In fact, he killed a man for being too ruthless, didn't he?
Okay.
Moses he murdered a guy and then comes down from Mount Sinai talking about don't murder. And the first thing he's like, remember that thing I did to that guy that was beating the slave, the Hebrew slave? Don't do what I did. But yeah, exactly. They were brutal to their Hebrew slaves in Egypt. And this whole generation of people has only experienced slavery. But as they're traveling, I guess they're moving toward Canaan and making plans for having a nation and wondering whether or not it's okay for them to have slavery, just like the nation that just had them. So I guess it's confusing stuff.
He knew it was ruthless.
He knew it.
And still said you could do it to other people.
Yeah.
Why is it that we have figured out that we shouldn't do that to people?
Well, we kind of do.
But
we kind of do.
We still know it's not right.
I know it's not. Yeah, we know it's not right.
It's not right.
We have to live around it a little bit.
Did God know it wasn't right when he said they could do it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was. And
why was he making laws about what fabrics you can wear together and what fish you can and can't eat? The Levites were making those laws, yeah. Well, no, the 613 Levitical commandments you talked about, coming from God, allegedly. Why would God give them all of these specific laws and rules to follow, but leave out that owning people is wrong?
So let me ask you, David. So, like, with that thought in mind, like, what would you... Let's say you were a Levite priest or maybe not. Let's say you're God in that situation, and people are like, well, what do we do, God? We want to, there's a guy, he committed a crime, or he committed a crime against our nation. African slaves didn't do anything to the Dutch, British, or we weren't at war with them. They just came and occupied people and took their culture and their names and stuff like that. And that's American slavery as we know it, right? But when you have a war with somebody, or when somebody owes a debt, do we just lock them up and they eat free and then they don't participate in the economy anymore? Or even now, is that how we should rule over people that do crimes? Or should they work for 8 cents an hour like they do in prison now and not really have a say in what job they get or whether they can work or shouldn't work? So how would you solve that?
So I'm reminded of John Rawls' veil of ignorance when it comes to morality.
Right.
Ask the community, if you messed up and made that mistake, how would you want to be treated?
Right.
Does that mistake define who you are?
That's right.
Or is it a product of your circumstance?
Right.
Did you steal the food because you're greedy or because there was no other place to eat? Has the community made it difficult for you to make progress? Like, I don't know, redlining neighborhoods and things like that many black and brown folks have dealt with in this country. And then now they're in the middle of food deserts. And now when there's crime in those areas, we go, look how they behave. No. Were you forced into this situation and this is a means to survival, or are you actually trying to bring evil about the world? Ask the community, how do you want to be treated if you had to behave that way?
It's crazy because it's almost like you can't sit in law, because it's like even the one rule that Adam and Eve had was the only way. The devil couldn't tempt Eve to kill Adam because that wasn't quite a rule yet. The one thing that he had to deceive her about was the forbidden fruit. So I guess because we have a ton of laws in America. We have probably the most incarcerated people in the world.
Absolutely.
I mean, is there something to that law? Does it create the problem? Because I think that's what, I guess Jesus' whole thing is, he came to set us free from live out the 613 laws to perfection and then become the perfect atonement. Actually, because the Levites had the atonement, like the goats, the scapegoat. That's where we get that word from, and they let one go. And
actually, that's another passage that I was debating on telling you that I wanted to cover. Jesus doesn't say to stop following those old laws because he is the fulfillment. And what you're talking about is Matthew 5:17 through 20. Yeah. He does say, do not think that I came to abolish the old law, but I came to fulfill it. Fact check me on this. I've been wrong about Jesus before. And if you keep going, he says, pull up all the way through 20 though, Channing. He says, do not think that I came to abolish the old law, but I came to fulfill it.
Fulfill the law.
And then he says, for not one jot nor one tittle shall disappear from the old law until heaven and earth disappear.
Right.
So he's saying, I don't know about heaven, but we know earth is still here and it hasn't disappeared. So it says we should still follow the old law.
Right. It says, he said 5 and 20?
17 through 20.
Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished.
Keep going.
Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commands and teaches others accordingly will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. Dang, you don't get to heaven, but you're going to be in the ghetto.
Exactly.
You're the least in the ghetto. But whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. And he also said, kingdom of heaven is, one more. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees, the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. But it's funny because he's saying to keep
following the old law, though.
Right, but he told the parable of the tax collector and the Pharisee, the righteous man and the unrighteous man, and the one that asked for grace is the one that received heaven, and the one that talked about his own self-righteousness. But I guess it's not that you would do it with your own righteousness, Jesus said. You would use his righteousness to do it. Is that right?
Sure.
Well, that's the idea that you can't accomplish the law.
He's just using
in your own person. You have to use God's righteousness. And that's so you receive God's grace, you're baptized, he comes into your heart, and then through his righteousness, because yours is like filthy rags, right? According to the Bible. You have no righteousness.
He's using the Pharisees as a measuring stick, as a barometer to go.
Right. And they're the ones that killed him. The Levi tribe. Caiaphas is of the Levi tribe, right?
So my point here is that Jesus didn't say, now that I died, that's it. You don't have to follow the old stuff. He's saying until heaven and earth disappear, you still have to follow those old laws. And if you don't, you will not be called in the kingdom of heaven.
But it's not that, I guess, but the idea is that you can't. So then once you let him in, and Jesus takes over your personage. So you disciple, discipline yourself.
He said until
be like
everything
Jesus.
is accomplished. Not everything is accomplished.
No, he
Even
said
if
it's
some
finished.
people
On the cross, he said it's finished.
in one version of it, there's 3 different versions of
There's
his
3 different
final
versions?
words. Yeah.
Oh, what else did he say?
One of them he says, my father, or my God, why hast thou forsaken me?
Right.
There was
That's
another one where he
when he
said-
emotionally left because he was made sin.
Yeah.
Right? Jesus was made sin, even though he had no sin, and he had to go to hell for 3 days.
Sure.
So, yeah.
My point is,
Yeah.
Matthew, Mark, and not Mark, Luke, Matthew, and John
Yes.
have 3 separate versions of what Jesus
Of his
final,
last
final
words.
Yeah.
Maybe they walked off at different times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They weren't all there.
They weren't all there. Oh, yeah.
They weren't there.
Right. Could be that.
No,
but
they're
yeah.
the oldest book.
Because I think John is supposed to attest to Jesus's divinity. The others attest to his
Right.
kingship, his right as the Messiah
God,
through the
this is-
Davidic line. So
This is
then-
why my podcast is 3 hours long sometimes.
Right.
Because these things are so. It takes such a deep
I could
dive.
talk
to
about this
not-
shit all day,
Me
man.
too. I love it.
Yeah.
It's not so. Mark, if you actually read Mark,
Yes.
it reads as though Jesus is very fallible. He gets angry,
He's a
right?
dude,
That's when
yeah.
he's flipping over tables.
Is that
He's
where the fig
he's a
tree
dude,
is
the
and
fig
stuff?
tree. He curses a fig tree for not having fruit. If you're God, how do you not know it's not supposed to have fruit?
Well, I think
Like,
that was
he
for
has
the
a-
people watching. I
Well,
don't
I
think the
know.
fig tree received the message. I think it was for us.
Well, he cursed the fig
He
tree
cursed
to
the fig tree
never
and it
bear
died.
fruit again.
Right, but it's
But-
telling you to be fruitful, right?
Okay, sure. If it's a message, who knows? The point is,
knows? I
he
don't
gets mad at it. He gets mad like a human anger. It's not like he didn't
That's
know.
the way he interpreted. That's the way Mark interpreted.
And then we
his-
get to the
his
end of that.
behavior.
You know how Mark ends? Mystery. They roll back the tomb and there's no body. And that's it. It's a to be continued. It's a really cool story. We don't know what happens. Mark never says Jesus comes back and all of this. Matthew came back. By the way, Mark
So
was the
that's where
first one to write.
Right.
Matthew had Mark's writings when Matthew wrote his.
Okay.
And it was like a writer improving
Because
upon
the first
a story.
is John, right?
No,
John,
Mark
as
was
far as
first.
the-
Mark was
Oh,
first.
not in order of canonization. I'm talking about in the because there's 66 books. So
No, I'm talking oldest. The original author
closest
was
to-
Mark, and it happened about 30 to 60 years after Jesus' death.
Okay.
Was Mark's book. That's the actual writing.
okay,
And then Matthew came maybe over around 100 years.
Right.
But he had access to Mark when he wrote Matthew.
Gotcha.
And then John and Luke came along and had a copy of Matthew and improved upon that. So you've been in writers' rooms before. You've been workshopping jokes with other comics. Things grow and develop over time. If you look at it from that perspective, it looks like they were writing fiction and building upon each other's characters.
Yeah, Matthew. Hold on one second.
Gesundheit.
Oh, almost got him.
I ain't falling for
Almost
it.
got him.
Good
I
health.
planned that for weeks. Good
health.
I was like, I was going to sneeze on this motherfucker and see if he says, God bless you.
What do you think I would say if you said God bless you to me?
That's what I want to ask you, dude. Would you make it weird?
I would say
you be
thank
weird?
you.
You said thank you?
Yes.
So like, man,
It's
you
a
played
polite
sports?
thing to do.
Did you play sports growing
Yeah,
up?
yeah.
Would you play football? You Texas played football.
Football and baseball, yeah.
So you had to pray before. I mean, well, it wouldn't have bothered you because you were
I was a
you
Christian
were
at the
already a
time.
Christian at the time.
Yep.
Dang. Would you make it? So let's say you're touring with a big time, I don't know, one of these
Yep.
guys, but you tour with a lot of guys,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't know if any of them pray before. But let's say it's a big opportunity. You're touring with this guy. He doesn't know you're an atheist. You're just comic to him. You're funny comic, and then he wants to pray, hold hands.
I
and
say no
stuff.
thank you.
Say no thank you.
I would stay silent and respectful while he practices his religion. I wouldn't participate.
Oh, okay. So if he was in the green
Actually-
room and said everybody hold hands, you would be like,
I would say no thanks.
No,
Yeah.
thank
No,
you.
I could stay there and just stay quiet.
Right.
I got kicked out of I was at a soup kitchen at a homeless shelter one time volunteering in Dallas.
Yeah.
And it was run by a pastor, and when I refused to pray, they made me leave.
Dang.
Yeah. That was shocking. I did not think they were going to do that.
Yeah,
He said, "Around here, son, we pray." And I was like, "I'm just here to help." I wanted to volunteer. He's like, "Around here, son, we pray." And I was like, "I'm not going to participate. I'm willing to help." And he's like, "Then you can see your way out." I left.
Yeah.
They would rather not have the extra body of help if I'm not willing to, pray.
Yeah, that's the
It's
and
disappointing.
That's one of the things you said too when you were talking to Frank. It kind of Frank Turek. You mentioned that atheists, because you're talking about how you be at atheist conventions and atheists argue. And I bring that up because I know because there's Christians that they argue all the time. 45,000 different Christian denominations around the world. So from this, anyway, from this one book, right, and not even considering Islam and Judaism, they also take things use the book a bit, but. Atheists, when they argue, first of all, would you say Because you've been on both sides of it. You've seen a Christian. I've seen pastors go to blows, right?
Yeah.
Do atheists argue in that way, or are they more united like Legion was, like the demons? Like they don't.
I think it's worse.
Yeah.
I think the atheists are worse.
They're worse
at fighting each other. And let me tell you why. Because just about the worst thing a Christian can say to another Christian is, "You're going to hell," or "You can't come to this church anymore,"
right?
Or "I'm never
going
to talk to you again." Yeah. Get out of my soup kitchen.
Yeah.
Atheists will, if they hate you enough and they think you're a poison, and it's never about atheism. It's always about some other bullshit. It's always, related to something else in politics, like someone disagrees with same-sex bathrooms or transgender or something in the LGBTQIA community, or some other political difference, or there's an atheist that supports Trump or whatever. And then most atheists tend to be liberal, and there's that political argument. A lot of them will literally try to ruin your career. Like
your career
had them,
outside of being an atheist.
I had a disagreement with an atheist over a business decision because we were working on books together.
Word.
We had the disagreement, and then he became so just infatuated with my career that he just followed everywhere I went and ended up calling my sponsors, telling them that he was writing a Huffington Post article that revealing that I'm a secret member of a white supremacist group.
Jesus.
And he was going to list all of my sponsors unless they backed out. And he cost me about $1,500 a month in sponsors.
Oh my gosh.
And they called me. They were like, "Look, we know you're not. We know this is fake, but we don't want anything to do with this."
Yeah,
so
people would rather just not.
So
deal with
he got the
BS.
notch in his belt. So that type of thing. People will report your accounts. They'll try to get your podcast taken down. They feel like if you disagree with them on the 1%, like you might agree with 98% of whatever they're talking about, and if you raise your hand and go, "Well, there's this one thing I'm not sure about yet," they just look at you like you're just the scum of the earth.
That's shocking,
try
man.
to destroy you.
Because I've heard, like, I listen to, like, a lot of pastors' perspective, different radio programs and stuff, and people, they talk about Jehovah's Witness, call them a cult, and I'm like, you can't really talk to anybody after I've called you because I say you're a cult, and you don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what I'm talking. And it's like, yeah, but it's actually kind of soothing to know that atheists do it too, man.
Oh, they're awful. They're awful.
And that's and then now you're dealing with a godless man who'll just straight lie
and let me tell you, humanists won't. And that's what I call myself.
Right.
I put people first. I put people over beliefs. And I know a lot of Christians who do the same thing.
Right.
If you're on your way to church and you see an atheist walking in the rain and you know he needs help, would you miss church to help that atheist?
Wait a minute. You just stole some of the test. Jesus, man. You just stole Jesus' bit, the Good Samaritan.
You don't think anybody was a good Samaritan before Jesus?
Wait a minute, man.
You don't think anybody was good?
I don't mind you don't agree in my religion, but don't be stealing bits.
Hold up.
On comedian Bible.
You don't think Jesus stole that bit?
Well, I don't know. Hey,
Jesus.
I ain't calling Jesus no joke
Jesus
thief. It wasn't
is a joke thief.
Jesus
is a joke thief. That's why they crucified him, by the way.
For joke thief?
Yeah, they crucified him for joke thief.
That's why they got Messiah.
Yeah, same thing. Same thing.
Oh my
God!
God!
Fell off that cross as soon as they put him on.
Just because he's so slimy. Oh, Shannon. Oh man.
Damn.
Okay. Look, it's because we got David in here, man. We're getting you all activated now, man. Oh my gosh, dude. So as you're getting, we all as comics, you've been doing comedy what, like 15?
No. I'm only 7 years in.
7 years in. Heck yeah, dude. You're very successful. You're growing. I mean,
thank you, man.
And also, just
I think starting late helped.
Absolutely. I think so. We were talking about in the last one. We had Ramsey Badawi in here. We were talking about kid pastors and kid comics, and how you need life experience. You need something to draw from. You need some wisdom.
Also, for 15 years before I did stand up, I traveled amongst the atheist/science circuit.
Right.
And I gave talks at conventions. I would do 45 minutes, and I would always write jokes and bits into my science talk. So I had a lot of stage experience. Plus, before that, I was in a heavy metal band. I was a lead singer. I rapped. I was always on stage doing something from the time I was a little kid. Plus, before that, I was a drummer. Like I've always been in a performance. So for me, it was a little bit of an easier transition. And I had the life experience. So.
Yeah, because I noticed even with Frank, like I saw Frank kind of get his ass whooped by Christopher Hitchens. Like I'm not a big fan of these debates. I just watch sometimes.
You're making me want. I'm gonna text Frank and have him back on the show just to prove.
He's not that good.
He's not that good. Frank's not that
good. But Christopher Hitchens was funny, I guess, because he has a little more of a, because you as the Christian, you had to be a little more nice and dad joke type stuff. And Chris was very biting with his. Rest in peace, Christopher Hitchens, or don't, whatever you want to do, Chris.
He can't hear you.
He's nowhere. So that's all right.
That's fine.
But yeah, man, I've noticed. So you can feel like the way in comedy that you feel like you're getting better. Well, first of all, let me ask you this. Because I came into comedy, I didn't know anything. I never had an entertainer in my family. you made a logical decision 7 years ago that you would be successful at was there a formula, like, or was it faith based? Did you have some sort of faith?
Very little in my life is faith based. Very little.
Okay. So what did you have? Did you have the recipe? Why'd you do this?
I was working. I would give a talk about atheists not being assholes to each other.
Yes.
And not being assholes to Christians. I would say you can speak to your Christian uncle without calling him an idiot. Here's how to have a productive conversation.
And that had humor in it.
And and if you make a mistake, admit it, like I just did. Don't dig your heels in and say, "Oh, I thought it was this. Let's move on."
Right.
You don't have to keep your ego at the door.
Yes, sir.
I would give talks, and then I would make it funny, and I would get these big laughs, and I'm like, "Wow, I've got something here."
Yeah.
And then I got invited. You heard of the Reason Rally?
No.
So 2016 was the reason. It was a Reason Rally. There was like 20,000 atheists. They basically show up to DC on election years to say we are a voting bloc that still matters.
Right.
And so
it's like the JFL for atheists.
Exactly. It
Just
really
for
is.
Last festival.
It really is. And like Wu-Tang Clan performed.
Damn.
We have like huge stars that are atheists. I think Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, a bunch of people shows up to be like, we're not religious either, but we want to take part in this.
Yeah.
We're a voting bloc. Stop governing our country based on your religious beliefs. That's essentially the point. And so I got asked to host a comedy show because my podcast was so popular that they were like, you'd be a good host for the comedy show. And so since I was hosting, I was like, let me write like a 5-minute set.
Yes.
And if I'm terrible, I can just bail at any moment and be like, see, that's why I don't do comedy. Here's your first comic. And there were 500 people in the audience, and I had a really strong set.
Did you bury the
this
guy
was
after
2016. You? No, hell no. No. These were pros.
Carlos Mencia.
You know, he came up and did the exact same set I did. That's weird.
And ripped.
Yeah. Somehow
like,
did
so
I.
they
He
hired
did my
me
shit.
to host this thing for my podcast.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
No, they were great. And then that gave me the itch. And shortly after that, I moved to LA and got my monthly show at the Comedy Store because of my podcast.
Yes.
And then I started working on my craft. So I kind of got in before I deserved it and started getting better. But I was watching, like, my first couple of years in stand-up, I'm watching Kevin Hart try shit out. I'm watching Chris Rock. I'm watching Eric Griffin. Like, I'm watching people, Bert Kreischer. Like, I'm watching Bill Burr practice. That's the best university you could ever go to.
You stepped right into your anointing, man.
Yeah. Keep sneaking these little words in. I love it.
But yeah, man, so let me ask you something. So being that you've been in this game for 7 years, you were 15 years kind of touring on, like, doing festivals through obviously you're still an atheist, but where's the better money, man? Because you just mentioned Brad Pitt, you mentioned atheists, they got money.
Yeah.
Churches got money too, because there's some brothers doing their thing on the Christian circuit.
I could be a multimillionaire overnight.
Doing the just touring as an atheist speaker?
Nope. If I converted to Christianity today.
Yes, sir.
And this is no joke, if I was like, damn, Sean, you're right. I do feel anointed. Let me see this again. My God. Yeah, absolutely. Praise God. And then went back to my studio and did my version of my podcast, convincing my atheist listeners that I've had revelation and I have God on my side. This would blow up. My show would blow up. My atheist listeners would turn on me. About 10 or 15% would believe me and follow and convert as well. The rest would call me crazy, and then I would have a mega church by the end of this year.
It's a revelation, man. Speak it in existence. So is it gonna happen? What's up? I think this is a setup, man. You that's what he was doing the whole time. He's playing y'all, man. This is a man of God right now. Just like
it's a long game. I've been on it 13 years. It's a long game.
So you're saying because there's a lot of money in the churches, there's a lot of money in that.
But the opposite happens, man. When I know several atheists who were pastors for 25 years and were doing very well, and as soon as they come out and go, I don't believe this stuff anymore, and go from pastor to atheist, they get one book deal. The book does all right. They'll get a $50,000, $80,000 advance from a publishing company. You better save it, because what are you going to do? You've been preaching since you were 18. You have no trade. You have no skill set. They usually go into sales. There's a whole organization called the Clergy Project that helps pastors and preachers who are secretly non-believers now, but have to keep their jobs. Right. It helps them transition out of that. They basically go do their preaching, and then they do like a day school, a night school. They do some other thing where they learn a trade, and then they help them find jobs outside of the church because they don't have anything else to do. But it's all anonymous because if they're outed, they're going to be fired.
Right. So go to clergy.com and see who's been logging
Project.
in. Clergyproject.com and see if your pastor's been logging in there.
You ain't going to see names. It's all anonymous.
Somebody
hack dox people.
Somebody hacked that thing, man, for Jesus.
Wow.
Because somebody got that false. Yeah, somebody in there being heretical up in that church. I was just playing. I was just messing with you. But no, man, that's wild. I did not realize that's a thing, man. Wow. So, and there's guys. So let me ask you, like, and I had it written, but as you're getting. Well, let me double back. Have you ever bombed in an argument? Because I know you're saying you got better with Frank. Like, let me double back real quick just to see.
Bombed in an argument?
Yeah, because I feel like you were whooping dude. There was another dude, and you guys were just having some weird philosophical. Like you couldn't land on a debate topic. It was on Zoom. You and this guy.
That must have been really recent.
I don't know if it was recent, but you just had this guy talking in circles and he was getting upset about these 4 pillars of an argument.
Yeah, that was recent. That was the most recent one I did.
Yeah, and it just seemed like you were confusing them and upsetting them. Is that kind of the goal?
No. I did not like that at all. I want to have a productive conversation.
You seem like you want to have a show. Like it's a show.
Exactly. I do think about it in terms of comedy. I want the person listening to have a good time and enjoy it.
Yes.
And if we can't even get past the first level, right? And anything, if I mention something outside of your bubble and you just insult me and stay in your bubble, you're not going anywhere, and the listener's not going to enjoy it. I would say the only real time I didn't do very well was the Frank Turek one. It was the one where I was up at early in the morning and I didn't know 8 out of the 10 topics we were going to talk about. That's that. If I could erase anything from, if I could own it. Yeah, I mean, I
blame the crowd. It was the crowd, man. They didn't get no sleep. It was hot in there. The waitresses were making noise.
Listen, and here's what makes me okay with bombing in that conversation. No matter how terribly I perform or how sleepy I was or how uninformed I was about the missing information, none of that makes it suddenly logical.
Right.
That a God that is moral would condone slavery and then tell me to worship him. None of that fixes that. None of that makes it suddenly logical that a God created a torture chamber of hell and expects me to try to be perfect or apologetic in order to avoid it. And he loves me. These things still don't make sense.
And so you separate yourself from that God. Like you say, like he's not your source.
My ignorance doesn't become evidence for your imagination.
So the way you imagine it or the way you interpret it is like God. Because I think a lot of religions try to get us back to the one, right? So if God is the source, he breathed the breath of life in you. I guess the way Eckhart Tolle would describe it, it's like you're a sun ray, right? And the source is the sun. So from the sun ray's perspective, perhaps he's separate. But if I worship God truly, like we were just saying, like people who, you know, you can say something with lip service, but I would almost probably say that more people are atheists than faithful Christians, right? Because they can just say that, go to church, keep their position in society. You just said there's a fear with it, right? Yeah. But, you know, when you see yourself as separate from that source, then everybody else is separate and it's all about you. Do you believe like you have a soul that you come from, or that soul has a source and that you were breathed into and that's where you come from?
So the word soul came from the word spirit.
Yes.
And the word spirit came from like the Latin for spiritus, like a spritz or a mist.
Yes.
Because they didn't understand organ death and organ failure and brain dead back then. So the only thing they knew is when a person died, their breath left them.
Yes.
So they would say the spiritus has left the body. The air, that mist that comes out has left the body.
Right.
So that's where the idea that we have a spirit inside of us came from, and that ended up becoming the soul. So there's no scientific evidence.
I guess some Christians would say that the soul is your mind, has to do with your mind, but the spirit is like the source. So the spirit, so your soul is kind of contaminated with your personality. Not that I believe this.
Sounds poetic.
I don't think that I'm gonna die and keep my personality, because I don't think that works.
Right, no.
But because then you'd keep yours, and then we're all trying to same issues, right?
Yeah.
But I think that so even that idea, so like the breath comes out. I wonder why then, like. So then, because I guess that's why the resurrection would be important, because that would mean that there is a spirit to reanimate this body, or a soul to reanimate it, and then walk out the tomb or whatever it was, as Mark ended. But if there were why can't we use electricity or do something like make a Frankenstein? And then would that be you if they could reanimate your dead body with electricity and put like AI in your, I don't know, would it be, you think you could resurrect you in that way?
There are people who are cryogenically frozen right now with hopes that we will have the ability to solve whatever their ailment is.
Before they died, they froze themselves?
No. They have to be dead in order to be frozen. Otherwise, it's murder.
Right.
So the moment they die, they freeze them instantly.
You say them, their brain and their body and everything.
You can do either. It's like $80,000 just for the brain, and they think they can put you in another body. Or if you want the entire thing frozen, it's like $250,000.
How long have they been doing that?
A few years now.
Few years. Okay, well, we'll see if it worked out. And then the resurrection wouldn't be that dope then.
Exactly.
Because if these people could just start walking around.
No, I don't believe in a spirit or a soul. I think everything that we are is inside of our brains. Mm-hmm. And we know this, I think, because when someone has brain surgery, you can literally tell a change in their personality. You can remove parts of their brain and literally remove parts of memory and behavior.
Right.
You know, or head injury.
It's all, absolutely. Brain injuries.
But you think that's what you are, is your memories and your...
Yeah.
And that's what you are. Yeah. Oh, okay. So if you like had a coma, you wouldn't be you anymore. Like your daughter,
I would be me. I would just be a. I would
be the awareness that is you.
I would be a new version of me that has a different experience.
So you never changed your personality then? Oh well, you just did. You were Christian and then you changed.
Of course.
Right. So
I think we're always changing.
Could be, yeah, because even God said, I am. And I think that I am, right? When Moses said, who should I say sent me to the people? He said, or to Pharaoh, he says, tell him I am.
God doesn't change, though.
Right. Well, God, no. God's omniscient, lives outside of time. But that's why he's the I am.
Malachi 3:6.
Like the awareness.
Malachi 3:6, God said, I, the Lord, do not change.
That's right, because he's outside. Yeah, he knows the end of the beginning. He's Alpha and Omega.
So can I ask you a question?
I was supposed to say, like, the I am is like the awareness of you. Like that, everything after that makes you little. I am David Smalley. I am a father. But then the I am would be the overarching source that we were just talking about, that maybe you come from. Would that be an interpretation that you could?
No, I think it sounds poetic, but I don't think there's any science. I don't just think there's any science backing that up.
No, sir.
It's just a metaphysical,
you're just not
assertion.
Aware. Because the only thing that would be true is that you're aware. Like you said, your memories could go, your personality could change, but the awareness that you are, like, would be there. It would be the only thing that you would be sure of.
Let me ask you this to get an understanding. Right. If you had an accident tomorrow that you had to lose your left hand,
yes, sir.
Are you still you?
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Okay. It's like
absolutely.
That. Okay. So if I wake up in a coma and I'm missing,
I think if I lose all my memories, I'm still me. Right.
Okay. That's what. What's the difference in what I said?
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm agreeing. Yeah, I think you're so used to disagree.
No, I don't understand why you. Yeah.
No, I was just expanding on the idea.
So can I ask you something?
Some people would say God is the source, and then that's what. Yeah.
I just don't think they have evidence to back up that claim.
No, not at all. I don't have none.
My question is on the topic of the show.
Yes, sir.
Because you seem like a really good dude.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
You would not condone any of that stuff.
What's that?
The
murder and slavery
and the
when you say condone, like I have to sit and just be a part of, like we were talking about the last when Ramsey was here, we were talking about how my natural father just got out of prison for drug offenses, 30-some years, never knew him. Okay. But and I have no personal, I mean, if people say he deserves that sentence or whoever is sentenced to whatever for weed or whatever, I don't know that I condone. I live in a society and things are going on around me and people have free will, that type of stuff that they talk about, and it's unfortunate, right? And I think that the only way to change once I started changing, because I didn't believe in none of this junk, but what I can't argue with is if somebody's like, in a suicidal state and something works for them. What do you tell your comedian friends when they're
You're avoiding
suicidal?
My question.
What is it? What was your question?
I had a very direct question.
What it was?
My point is,
how do I justify it?
No, how do you?
Or do I need to condone it?
It sounds so. Just let me get this out.
Yeah.
So God didn't order or command slavery. He said it's allowed, and you can take from these people, but don't rule over these people ruthlessly. So he did approve/allow slavery and the ruthless kind. Right. You never would. So you, to me, seem to have a higher morality than the God you worship. So my question is, I think earlier, that God in the Bible should be looking up to you for morality. My question is, why would you worship a God? Why would you worship a God that seemingly would allow terrible things that you would never allow?
His ways are not my way. I can't lean on my own understanding, but I asked you earlier what would you do differently? And you didn't really give me an answer about, well, if you were God, well, how would you have solved that issue? Would you take away free will and then people couldn't have slaves? Because then if you could do that, then why aren't we outside picketing a prison? Like what we're condoning by being a part of our society, being a part of America.
Well,
I suppose it's situation that it's in, and it's unfortunate. And I say to man, let me tell you something. I say the Pledge of Allegiance like it's nothing. And I know it's effed up that the history of this country, man, the fact that black people came here state property and are still second-class citizens, and we're the only people not to immigrate. Well, actually, I'm an immigrant. I'm a Jamaican slave. But the blacks here, like this country belongs to them. It's state property. They didn't immigrate here, and they're second-class citizens. I don't know that I condone it. I'm from the South. I have friends that wear Confederate flags and take pride in Confederate flags. I don't condone their behavior, but I love them, and that's the only access I have to them. Because then once I stop loving them or I admonish them and they turn away from me, like those people had the option with God, because the Israelites kept trying to turn away from him, go back to Egypt and die. You almost have to like, well, it's not that I condone it. I love you. And then we'll work our way from there. Because that would be the only way to access it and not just call you an atheist and call Ramsey, who was just here, a Muslim, and then not have any kind of engagement. Because as a comedian, I've had the opportunity to engage with people on such a deeper level. 18 years doing comedy. These are my best friends. Some of them are killing themselves, doing drugs, self-medicating. What do you say to those guys? What do you say to those guys when they want to turn their life around?
Let me still address this.
Oh, I'm sorry. So we'll get to them.
So you don't, as a man, you don't have the power to stop all of this shit that's going on in the world, right?
No, sir.
We can make some little bits of differences, but we don't have the power. God, in your belief, has the power to stop these things and doesn't.
Free will.
Okay, so let's talk about that really quickly.
Right.
Is there free will in heaven?
Free will. When you say heaven, like I said, I don't know that I have the overarching Christian idea of heaven.
Whatever your idea of heaven is there free will in heaven? Just directly answer that one.
No, you're just back to the source. You're back to God.
So
you're
you're
back
just
to
a robot?
One.
You're just a puppet?
It's not that you're a robot. It's not, you're not. See, you're a body, right? You have a body, you have a personality. You are not the body, you are not the personality. Those are things that you have. This is my belief.
Do I have options in heaven? Do I get to do anything?
I don't know.
Can we have this conversation?
You get to be in the presence of God, and then you would be. So it's such a. I don't too much worry about death. I'm worried about how this helps me now.
No. I'm trying to figure out.
for bringing. I'm sure a lot of people wonder what happens when they die.
I'm trying to figure out how is it paradise if you don't have freedom.
Right. I don't know if am I free when I'm asleep. Like if I'm present with God when I'm asleep, right? Do I feel like I'm free or do I feel like I'm enslaved? I don't know. I just wake up with joy.
That sounds like prison. If I have to spend an eternity asleep, that's not.
So you would want to, what would you want to do in eternity? You want to go to theme parks?
Whatever I want.
Skydive or something like that?
The whole idea of an eternal paradise is illogical. That's my point. Because either I have free will, which means I could step on your toes, and now you're not having a perfectly great experience, because my freedoms can counteract with your pleasure.
Exactly.
Right?
That's why I said earlier, I could be your neighbor. Personality.
I could be your neighbor and I could sing loudly and annoy you. Can you be annoyed in heaven? Well, okay, so the only way to do that is to then take away my free will.
Right.
Let me finish. I'm going to take away my free will, so I'm now this autonomous robot that just worships God, and that doesn't sound like paradise because I'm not happy or free. I'm just there to worship like a minion. But if there is a way for us to be happy eternally in heaven and have free will, God could have just made that possible on earth.
Yeah, I think he has. And I think it is to praise God would be to praise the essence of you, to praise the essence of Channing, to praise the essence of, so it's not that God is separate from you. I think so our perspective, the fact that you have a mind and you see yourself as separate from me, right? Jesus said, what was it particularly? Love your neighbor as thyself. So as you or me, my name was David Smalley and I grew up in Texas, played football, played in the band, I would be you. The only thing separating us is your experiences, right? That's your personality, your history. But the only thing, the essence of us was the complete same before the flesh, before the personality, before the way you look at the world. And once I label you that, I can't love you. So people think it's as much as I love myself. If I don't love myself, I can't love you. That's always the argument with that, where he said, but if you are me, right? If you are literally me, just the only thing separating us is where we came from, where we were born, then I can't, loving you and praising you and that's happiness to me. I mean, maybe it's not quite, it's
you know
peace.
What's interesting about this?
It's joy.
That is why I cannot worship the God of the Bible, because I love you. And I love
and he's stopping you.
Channing, and I love all of the human beings out there.
I think
right?
you're. I think
let
you're.
Me get this out, man.
It's an
Let me get this out.
interpretation of it. But
my point is, I love humanity.
Yes, sir.
And I can't look up to a God
Yes, sir.
that treats humanity the way he does in the Bible. It doesn't seem like a loving God would treat us that way.
When you say like come down from heaven and make atonement and
just the plagues,
and try to free you internally from sin.
The sin that he allowed, that he put on the table, saved me from the torture chamber that he built according to the rules that he designed.
Right.
And when they say that Jesus died for our sins, I hope this isn't disrespectful. I don't see the big deal with that. And let me tell you why. If Jesus is God, and God has existed for trillions upon trillions of years, and then came to earth for 33 of those years, died, was dead for 3 days, and went back to heaven with God.
Went to hell and saved. Yeah.
Okay, whatever. And now he's in heaven for all of the rest of eternity. What did God give us? What did he sacrifice? If I let you borrow my car for 3 days, I could hardly say I sacrificed my car to you. So in the grand scheme of things, it was more like a bad weekend at human camp. There's no real giant sacrifice there, so I never even saw that even as a believer.
I guess it'd be the only thing that you could sacrifice would be your physical as a flesh, But I think it was.
If you have trillions of years of life and you're going to live for eternity,
it's not life because he's outside of time. So it's really hard to be outside of time and then come like because the end and the beginning. You would know. It's kind of a cool story. I mean, when you're looking at, because the Matrix stole it, right? The idea that you have to become sin to defeat it, right? That's what he had to become the virus, because the virus is inside you, right?
Yeah.
The virus, the thing setting you free. It's not that you're in prison. Okay. Even my brothers in the prison industrial complex, you can be set free in prison. I've seen brothers who are more free in prison, right? Or with shackles on their hands, because it's more of an internal freeness. You change yourself internally, right? Just like Joseph did before he started going out with the Israelites.
You're being poetic, but
well, I mean, but you can,
it's
you can choose
words,
not to accept it.
I think these dudes would rather be outside. I think.
No. I've talked to brothers who like that set me free from what I was doing out there, because it's punishing to live that way, to live in secret, to live in condemnation, to live with guilt. And so, if somebody could set me free from guilt, not set me free from my white enemy. Not set me free from, because you can't do nothing. You can take my life, just like the Hebrew boys. So
Did
never
you say white enemy.
White enemy, or against black. I thought Hebrew Israelites would say you my enemy, or so would Nation of Islam. But you're not my enemy. Is my point. Rather than set me free from
you're trying to sneak some in there.
Right.
No.
Yeah,
who does he think I am?
That's what this is gonna call.
Did you read that Huffington Post article?
Hebrew Israelite owns bald white man. I'm working with that atheist that was trying to destroy you. But yeah, man. But let me ask you this, right? So. You have a daughter. You do a dope podcast with your daughter called Daughter Issues.
Yeah,
hilarious, and she's a young person. So like you're bringing up. So part of it is like you bring up old stuff. And like, you're married? You're a married man?
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay, and then but you do have this one daughter, or how many children?
Yep.
Did you plan to have your daughter?
I had when I met my future wife, she had an 8-month-old baby.
Okay,
and I didn't legally adopt him, but I took him in and raised him up. And unfortunately, he died in 2020 in a motorcycle accident. So I had a son and a daughter for most of my adult life.
Yes.
And my daughter is still doing fine. She's 19. We do a podcast together. I don't want to just skip over and say I only have one kid. I had to.
Yes.
My son died in 2020.
Yes. Now, but talking about I love the relationship you guys have. You and your daughter.
It's fun. It's a fun show.
Yeah. Like, so when you were planning, I know your first son was already you accepted him as like my stepfather did for me, and that's a beautiful thing when a man does that. But with your daughter, like, you plan on having a child at some point in your life.
Yeah.
Would you call yourself then like her creator? I mean, this is not me.
No, not at all.
So there was no did you feel like you were kind of Christian when you had your daughter? No. Was that it? No. You were an atheist?
No. Yeah. I was an atheist.
And did you have a thought like, I'm bringing this kid into misery for no reason when you had your daughter?
No, I will say I've had that thought after the fact. I was still pretty young. I was 24. I hadn't figured that part out yet.
Yeah.
And I still wouldn't be completely against having a child, but if you look at the statistics, atheists are far less likely to reproduce than Christians because of that. So it is something that we do consider as, what's the point?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. That's why I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. And even being married, were you an atheist when you got married?
Yes.
So like, how important is that when you're dating out here now?
Super important, man.
So she's also got to be, because the Bible says be equally yoked.
Yeah.
Like, so you should be equally yoked.
I agree with that part of the Bible.
There you go. There's stuff for everybody.
Yeah, I agree
Praise
with that.
the Lord. Thank you.
That's a good part of the Bible.
Yeah, well, you be evenly yoked,
Yeah.
man. So she needs to be an atheist and have sort of the same humanistic ideas.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
The humanism is far more important than the atheism. There are religious people who are better humanists than some atheists I know. I want to say it again. There are some religious people who are better humanists than some atheists I know.
Yes.
So yeah, treating people with respect, putting people before beliefs, that's the primary part. If you have a belief after that, that's fine.
Okay. Nah, that's dope, man. I love that, man. And not to be too poetic, but like, you know, like I've known a lot of my comedy brothers. I've been in 18 years committing suicide, like you said, drugs and all this stuff. What do you say? And they can give you evidence for why their life is kind of trash, even if you think they're being successful and they got shows out. Trust me, I could go down the gambit of guys that have ended their lives with what we would imagine, you know, looks good to me. They seem to have.
Same.
What do you tell people when they're providing you with evidence? I don't know if you've ever been in that situation. You've had tragedy in your life, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Losing a son is insanely tragic for any person, but it's like, have you ever been in a position where you've had to counsel to a brother in comedy, and what might you say, being that, you know, I don't know, I guess it's a humanist thing, but where would you draw from, or what would you say to them in that situation?
My primary goal is to get them to accept and seek therapy from a professional.
Okay.
That's the first thing I try to do, because I did go to college for it, but I never finished and got certified.
Right.
So I don't, and I feel like everybody should do that. They should try to get the person to seek help and talk to a counselor. Letting them know that they're loved, letting them know that they've always got a place to come if they want to talk. Back on the E.M. Forrester quote, how do I know what I think until I see what I say? Sometimes people can be talking to you and hear a solution to their own problem out of their own mouths that they'd never thought of before.
Just let that counsel come
Let
out.
it go. Let it go. That's why prayer, I think prayer can be useful because as they speak, they are finding their own solutions.
Wait a minute.
They then give credit to God, but I believe it comes from the person themselves, hearing themselves talk. So you pray and you feel better and you find solution. You go, thank you, God. I'm going. You did it yourself, but give credit to whoever you want to give it to. But it can still be useful for that reason. Talking things out is extremely important. So being there for that person, loving that person. I always say this too. I'm so sorry you're going through that. Let me know if you need anything. I'm not going to say I'm going to pray for you and then feel like I did a good thing. Let me know if you need anything. So being there for my friends is super important to me.
Absolutely, man. I love that, man. Be of good counsel. Praise the Lord. Thank you, David. Appreciate it, man. You know what, man? And this has been a beautiful talk. I love that we could, like, you know, exchange but I got to beat your ass now, man, because you came on the Comedian Bible Study Show. There's an atheist. He's with Satan, and he's not going to take my Bible. You got my questions ready, Chad?
I do. Before we get to that, hold your bravado.
This is rigged, by the way. This is rigged.
It's not rigged.
He's
I'm a man of God. I know I don't lie.
Let me tell you now.
To that,
Yes, sir.
Anytime I lose, it's rigged.
I want to ask you guys a question because you were talking about this. You kind of touched on the subject of money in religion versus money in like comedy or whatever.
That's right.
You guys kind of joked about it earlier, and I think you guys are a good pair to have the conversation.
Yeah.
What do both of you guys just feel like as two people on different sides of the aisle? How do you guys feel about the televangelists of the world? You know, the Pat Robertson, Joel Osteen's, and the biggest piece of shit maybe alive, Kenneth Copeland, those guys.
Popoff. Remember Popoff?
Oh, yeah.
Peter Popoff, man.
Yeah.
Sell that water.
Yeah.
I mean, I could
holy
probably
water.
guess David's take on it, but like, Sean, how do you feel about guys like that who seem like exploitative? If
You
that's
know,
the word?
it's because and it's a tough line because it's like, you know, when you're in a field similar to comedy, you're a pastor, you're a comedian, we kind of determine our value, right? In the sense of the value that you put, and I'd be interested to hear how you determine your value, David. But the value I feel like I put into people through what I understand about the Bible and how to create wealth and creating value in other people. Yeah, it's hard to tell somebody that if you create the type of value that gives someone hope, that might get somebody off drugs or might heal people in a way. I can't say it's fake, right? I don't know. But what I do see is that, yeah, I can't judge you any more than a rapper that might put, or heavy metal. I don't know if they talk about the devil. I can't understand heavy metal, but rap they might talk
It points
about.
to me when he says devil.
No.
You're
You got the real devil. You're just the white devil. No, I'm just playing. No, man, but like if you're talking about like, it's a fine line, and that's a fine line, and you can only know that from the person's heart. And I think the Bible talks about that a lot because there's different people who once he understands your intentions. Like I heard you talk about when you're talking to Frank about the talking donkey and Balaam going on behalf. He was a Moabite going to, and when God saw his intention was to make the money and lie, because he would tell people like, I can't do anything outside of God. Right. If God won't allow me to do it, I can't do it. But then when he saw his heart start to change, he I'm almost, but he was just kind of like, yeah, I think that it's in your heart. How you create value. So if you're writing books and you can justify your money in that way, you'd have to talk to them, man. It does look a little gaudy to me from sometimes, but then it's nice to see Jay-Z in a plane talking about drugs and killing people or 21 Savage.
But he's honest. But
he's honest.
He's more honest, right? So you think that's honest? Wait a minute.
Yeah, well, he's not
21 Savage ain't killed nobody.
No, he's not doing it.
I'll kill 21 Savage with my bare hands.
They're not doing it in the name of Jesus and leveraging that vulnerability of people's faith to get that money. And that's the difference. I think, how do you look at Jesus flipping over the tables of the money changers and then have a multi-billion-dollar church? Like if Ronald Reagan came back today, he would flip over the Republican Party, right? Just like Jesus would be like, what have you done to Christianity?
Yeah.
Could be, yeah. I might even agree with you.
If Jesus were alive today, there's one thing he wouldn't be, and that's a Christian.
They would look at that fucking lizard, Kenneth Copeland, and he would put a finger on his forehead and strike him down. That guy's a haunted Halloween mask. Are you guys ready to battle?
Let's battle!
Let's go. I didn't know we were battling, but I'm ready for it.
Bible Belt. Yes, I've ambushed this man.
I love it. I had no idea there was a fight happening today.
Yeah, we're going to see who knows this
take
book.
Your shirts off and wrestle.
Yes, sir.
Sweet.
Comedians Bible Study quiz number 3.
Yes, sir.
Sean Grant versus David C. Smalley.
So, David, the way it works, if you answer, I'll give you a chance to answer first. If we tie at the end, you win. Because if I have a podcast called Comedian Bible Study, I should beat your ass. But if it's a tie, you win the belt, okay?
Okay.
I ain't going to let that happen, okay? Not against Satan. Go ahead. What's the question?
Question number 1. I'm waiting for you.
That's crazy.
Question number 1. Who did the Apostle John see dressed in white robes around the throne of God?
Oh,
I thought that said roses. I need to stop reading it.
Right. Yeah, he put it in that font.
The 144,000 witnesses. B, those who have come out of the Great Tribulation. C, Old Testament saints.
I know this.
D, the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Or E, the ones who will return to the earth with Christ to battle the beast. David
can answer first, but I know the answer. I know the answer.
See dressed in white.
This is from Revelations. This is from the last book of the Bible.
Don't spend a lot of time in Revelations.
Me neither, man. I think weirdos be in Revelations all the time, man. A lot of weirdos and conspiracy theorists stay up in Revelations. But I'll let you answer first. I know that. I feel like I know the answer.
B.
I'm gonna go C. It's the Old Testament saints.
I almost said that.
David says B, those who have come out of the Great Tribulation. Sean says C, Old Testament saints. Correct answer is those who have come out of the Great Tribulation.
Whoa!
1-0, David.
Oh, Jesus, don't let this go down like this. But your will be done, Lord. Your will be done. I'm down 1. This is looking bad, man. I've not been down 1.
But I forgot to mention, too, Sean is currently holding the belt in favor of Sean versus Guest. Sean is the current champion.
Oh, is he undefeated?
I'm undefeated.
No, you did tie. You tied
Chris.
You went to a draw with Chris. Chris Estrada. Question
Chris
number
Estrada,
2.
Yeah, I tied with the agnostic. Oh, no.
What did the angel tell John to do with a book the angel had in his hand?
Oh, shit.
What did the angel tell John to do?
By the way,
with
I just want to say I hate this font.
Yeah,
the angel
Can you make it bigger?
had in his hand.
Can you like Command plus or whatever on this thing? It's a
That's
weird.
why. Yeah, that's what
better.
messed me up.
Isn't that better?
I'm sorry. Yeah. Hey, well, I got that wrong. I really thought it was the Old Testament saint.
What did the angel tell John to do with a book that the angel had in his hand? A, publish it on earth. B, send it to the 7 churches in Asia. C, eat it. D, decree its judgments against the Antichrist. E, sing songs of worship to it from God. From it to God.
C, eat it.
Well, so that made me, I guess I got to go B, man. B. It's B. What tied?
No.
What?
Correct answer is
Don't tell me
C. Eat it. 2-0, David Smalley. And we go to...
That's it.
Yeah.
And but let's just answer.
Shits and giggles, we go
What?
To question number 3. What happens to anyone who tries to harm the 2 witnesses in the book of Revelation? A, lightning from heaven will kill them. B, they are attacked by wild bears. C, fire comes out of the mouths of the 2 witnesses and destroys them. D, they are stricken with blindness. Or E, worms eat them up.
So what happens to anyone who tries to harm the two witnesses? So I know Elijah commanded 2 bears to kill 42 children for attacking him.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's a reference
Related
back to that,
bear.
or if this questioner is intentionally. Did you make these questions?
No.
Okay.
Well, you got them from a website. Stupid website.
That happens to anyone who tries to harm 2 witnesses in the book of Revelation. Lightning, attacked by wild bears.
It doesn't matter now. I lost.
Fire comes from the mouths of 2 witnesses and destroys them.
Sean's going with D. They're stricken with blindness. David C.
Stricken with blindness does sound good.
If he pushes with me, just
I'm going to say D.
To make sure he buries me.
It's D.
Correct answer is actually C.
Fire comes out of the mouths
of the 2 witnesses and destroys them. It doesn't matter because
I knew. The new Bible Belt champion.
Bible Belt
that was
champion,
Bruce Buffer.
David C. Smalley.
That was Bruce Buffer, wasn't it?
For copyright purposes, we don't know who that was.
I don't know who that was.
Well,
man.
I know him. He's my buddy. Maybe I can get you a copyright on that one.
Okay.
Dude, thank you, Dave. Congratulations,
Man, that's awesome.
David,
Thank you, man.
David, thank you for being. What you got coming up, man? I know you're always at the, you're regular at the Laugh Factory, all over the place, man. You're touring. What's going on? Where can people find you and stay in touch with you?
David C. Smalley on everything.
Yes,
my
sir.
TikTok, my Instagram, even Threads, Twitter, everything. David C. Smalley and DavidCSmalley.com. That's where all my shows and tickets are. And my podcast, Daughter Issues, with my daughter. We do all behind-the-scenes stuff at daughterpod.com. But you can find links to all my stuff at everything David C. Smalley. Thank you for having this podcast.
Of course,
this is great, and I want to have you on my show as well. And I hope you bring me back, and I'll give you a chance to win your belt back.
I got a rematch clause, automatic rematch clause. Is
By
in
the way,
act.
totally not rigged. I just want to say.
Clearly not, man. Golly, you in advance on that one, Channing. But again, thank you, Channing.
Thank you, guys.
for what you do,
Thank you,
man, for making
Very
this
good
thing run. Thank you, brother, and thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you follow us at Comedian Bible Study on IG, and we do some IG live stuff with different comedians all over the country. So please tune in for that stuff, man. My name is Sean Grant. We'll see you next time, man. Peace.
Peace.
This is a great idea, man.